First, we are going to create our project with the help of Django admin start project command. We are going to name it as employee_crud_app. We are going to move inside that directory and run our development server with the help of python manage.py run server command, and we are going to open the code in our text editor. Right now I am using Visual Studio Code. We are opening settings.py file, and inside that we are going to declare our templates directory inside the templates list, which is base_dir/templates. After that, we are going to create our templates directory, and we are going to create the base.html file, which will have the boilerplate of our basic HTML code, which we are going to import in our subsequent HTML files, where we will be using the Django template engine. We have created the content block. We are creating a new app for our project, which we are going to name as CRUD. We are using Django admin start app command. First, we are going to include the path of our urls.py file of our CRUD app, which we have just created, and we are going to copy urls.py file to our CRUD app so that it will also have a urls.py file. We will edit it later on. We will import views inside it. Now we are creating our models. Our model class will be named as employee, and it will have two fields. First one is name, which we have created using the char field, and then we have salary, which is a float field. Now we will try to make migrations, but as you can see, it has failed because we made a mistake, and we have corrected it in our urls.py file. Now we have to, before making migration, we need to import our model in the admin.py file, and we also need to register it. For registering, we are going to use admin.site.register function, and we will add the model class inside that function. Now we need to declare the app which we have created in the settings.py file, installed apps list. After that, we created our migrations file with make migrations command. Then we run the migrate command. Now we will open the Django shell, and we will import our model which we have just created, and we will create a new element of that, a new object of that model with the name alta and with the salary of some amount, and we are going to use the save method on that object. Let's see if it is saved in our database. I'm going to use a tool called dbeaver. We are going to create a new connection to our database of our current project. We will move to that path, and we will double click on the SQLite file, and we can see the CRUD_employee table, and we can see it has created our row successfully. Now we are creating the index function in the view.py file, and we are going to render index.html, which we will create inside the templates directory. Here we are using extends base.html because we are using the standard boilerplate which we have just created in base.html. We have copied the block and now we are creating the form so that the user can enter the data from the home page of our app. It will be having two fields. One will be for the employee name, which is required, and another will be for employee salary, and it is also going to be a required field. It will have the name and ID of employee salary, employee underscore salary, and finally we are going to add a button of type submit. Our form is almost ready. Now we need to declare our URLs path inside crud/urls.py file, and we have run the server again. Let's see if it is working or not. Let's see our application in port 8000. Okay, so let's add a navbar in our base.html file, and we will add links to home and show all employees. We will later fill these anchor tags with the href of the URLs. Now let's create our view function for adding all the employees. We will import our model, and first we will check the condition whether the request object is coming from a post request. We will create an instance of the employee model class, and we will add the name and which we will get from the HTML page. Similarly, we will add the salary which we are getting from the HTML page, and finally we are saving it with .save method. And finally we are going to use the redirect function to redirect to the index page. Since this has been done, we will go to the URLs file Okay, so let's check whether it is working. Okay, so it is giving us the CSRF value error. We need to add CSRF token on Django forms. Okay, so we have added the CSRF token. Now let's check our form again. So now it is working fine. Let's now go to the urls.py file and we will add our add new employee URL there. As you can see, we have successfully added our new data to the database. Now let's create the page for show all employees, where we will be using a table for showing all the employees which are in our database. As you can see, we have added the links in our base.html files navbar. Now we are updating the urls.py file, and with the same name we will create a function inside views.py file. First we will create an instance of, we will create an object where we are going to use employee.objects.all, which will be returning the query set containing all the employees. and we are passing it with the help of the context object, and we are finally using the render, where we are passing request object, the name of HTML template, and the context object. Now we need to create the template now. So we have copied the blocks, and in the block content we are going to create a table for name, salary, and action. The action column will contain the links for editing and deleting that particular employee. The if condition is to check whether the context object is containing the employee data or not. Now we are using a for loop, and we are closing the for loop with end for, and now we are adding all the necessary columns inside the table row. This will be our edit link, and this will be our delete link, which we are going to populate later on. It says the page not found, which let's diagnose this error. Let's go to our urls.py file. Okay, so one slash was missing from there. Okay, as you can see, a tabular data is being displayed on our view. I want it to be having a border, so okay, so it is visible now. Now let's create the function for edit. We will call it edit underscore employee, and we will pass employee ID as the get parameter. Let's create it. We have passed request object and employee ID, and we are getting the employee and storing it in the emp object with the help of primary key. We are using the get method on employee model. We are checking if request.method is equal to get, then we are going to create our context object, and inside that context object we are creating a key named employee, and we are passing the data which we have got from the database. And now we are creating a template for edit employees, which will be very similar to the index.html, since it is also containing a form, and inside that form values will be filled of that particular employee which we want to edit. So we are adding value equal to employee.name and value equal to employee.salary on their respective fields. Okay, now let's add it to the URLs file. Here, since we are adding a get parameter as well, we have added str:_id. We have converted id to an int. Okay, so it says edit employee is not a valid view function, which is because we have not edited the urls.py file carefully. Okay, so as you can see, the data is being populated in the. Now we need to create a function to save our edited data. First we need to check if the request method is post. Then we need to collect all the data which is coming from the view, which is coming from the template. In the template we also need to add an input field which will be hidden, which will contain the employee ID, so that we can get the ID of that particular employee, and then later on we can edit that employee. Okay, so we have created an input field with the name of employee_id, and the value will be employee ID. We have converted the ID to an integer and we are using the get method to get that particular employee, and then we are getting all the necessary parameters from the template and we are storing it to that instance of our object of that particular employee, and we are adding the save method of that employee, and finally we are redirecting it to show all employees template. But okay, so let's check with this particular employee. Since we have clicked on add, now you can see it has added instead of editing that particular employee. Why is that? Because we have not changed the form, we have not changed the action in the form. Now we have edited our urls.py file as well. Let's check this out. Okay, so now it is working perfectly. Now we need to create a function for the delete as well. We are going to create delete underscore employee function in view.py file, and inside that, first we are checking whether the request method is get, and if it is get, we need to get the ID of that employee, which we are getting from the get parameter, and now we need to get that particular employee and we are deleting that with the delete method, and finally we are redirecting it to show all employees. Okay, now let's add this method to our URL. We will be using the same as edit employee, since we are using the get parameters here. We will change the name and view. Okay, now let's add the URL to our show all employee template. It is working properly as we want it to be. Okay, so our CRUD application is ready.